Leigh Steinberg, good morning. How are you, my man?
Good morning.
So, first of all, let's get started. You've been doing this for 40 years. Is that correct? That long now, huh?
I began in 1975 when Steve Bartkowski was the very first pick in the first round of the NFL draft, and I had been a dorm counselor at Berkeley while I was going to law school, and they moved the freshman football team into the dorm, and one of the students was Steve. So there I was at 25 representing the very first pick in the draft, and there was a World Football League competing, and we got the largest rookie contract in NFL history.
Well, it almost seems like you were in the right place at the right time. You met this guy. You moved. Had you ever considered being a sports agent before you met this guy?
Rover, there really was not a sports agency then. Most players used their parents, and a team didn't have to deal with an agent. So I remember early on calling Mike Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals, and he said, "We don't deal with agents." Click.
Well, that certainly has changed a lot over the decades, obviously. I mean, nowadays, I can't imagine anything similar like that happening where a guy in college meets a guy in law school and says, "Hey, I want you, when you graduate, I want you to be my agent." That just wouldn't happen today, right? It's too much of a business these days.
Absolutely, and it probably is the most popular business on business school, law school, many campuses going. It's moth and flame.
Yeah, I just can see how a lot of guys would be drawn. They want to be an agent. They have no, athletic abilities themselves, but hey, we can still make a lot of money off of this. So that's how you got your start. You negotiated the biggest rookie contract in NFL history at the time, back in the day. Was that anything of your doing, or was that, like you said, there was a competing league at the time? Was it just being in the right place at the right time, or did you have some sort of great business acumen that you were using?
I think that any time there's a first pick in anything, it sets a trend. So in sports negotiations, there's no arbitration except in baseball. The market is whatever it is. So I've represented the first pick in the NFL draft, the first pick in the first round 8 years, and it's the most creative of experiences because you get to set the market.
You know, and I'm a total layman when it comes to this, Leigh. I don't know the ins and outs of deals and negotiating and all when it comes to sports. But it seems to me that through the years, and I guess things have started to change here, but these guys get such huge contracts, these rookies. They get such huge contracts. They get into the NFL, and then a lot of them just sort of peter out because, hey, I have a $10 million contract. Sure, only 4 of it's guaranteed, but hey, who needs more than that? And then they don't really do so well. Do you think that it reduces the motivation for players to really excel in the league when they make such big money as rookies coming into the league?
No, I don't. There is a salary cap that was passed in 2011 in the NFL. There's one in the NBA, so the massive rookie bonuses of yesteryear are gone. They've now been capped. The money goes to proven productive veterans and to benefits instead. I will tell you, athletes are the most competitive group of people I've ever seen. So they have such intense pride. If there was no money, they still desperately want to win. What happens is that the draft's imperfect. So some of the picks test really well. At a combine, they're just not great football or basketball or baseball players, but they have all the measurables. And so that's a hard thing to measure how someone's going to do on the field. And while I think they try, there's a thing that's heart and passion, and I think there are various levels of it. And so you're right, probably half of the players drafted in the first round in virtually any sport either underperform or don't turn out to be what they're supposed to be.
Leigh Steinberg is on with us. His book is The Agent, My 40-Year Career Making Deals and Changing the Game. When you go, and obviously I'm guessing that between agents there's a big competition to get these guys that are in college and to sign these guys as clients of yours. What is that process like?
Players are better protected now than they were in the past because states have labor regulations governing agents. States like Texas and Florida and Alabama have sent agents to jail. Then schools have what they call compliance, and so they regulate agents also. And it's a tale of two cities, Rover. On the one hand, you have those players who have parents involved, and they do much better screening, and the players are much better protected, more due diligence than ever before. They generally pick good agents. Mm-hmm. We profile players, so I'm looking for role models, players that will retrace their roots and go back to the high school, collegiate, and professional community and set up role modeling and charitable programs, high school scholarship fund, collegiate repayment, ultimately a foundation in the city where they can make a difference in the quality of life and show the quality of their character. So those types of players generally have their parents involved, they have family friends, they have college administrators involved, and they do extremely strong interview process where at the end you could be confirmed for Secretary of State. But then you have the remainder of the players. They're not protected, and they end up signing with agents and financial planners that are the genesis of later problems.
And when you get a guy, we'll make a fictitious guy, Joe Blow, you sign him, and he could be potentially the number one draft pick overall. Do you then start lobbying immediately teams like, hey, you should pick this guy number one? Or do the teams just say, hey, we'll pick who we want to pick, and then we'll have to deal with Leigh Steinberg on money after we pick the guy?
So teams have directors of player personnel, and they do draft boards where they're rating players on the basis of size, strength, speed, athletic ability, agility, character. There now is a second season of scouting, for example, in football, which will start. Most of the players now are trained by trainers, so they spend a month honing their skills, and then they go off to a scouting combine where they're given physicals, and there's a series of tests, how fast they can run a 40, how big a vertical or a horizontal leap, how many times they can bench press 225 pounds, and then they play at their position, and then after the combine, the action moves back to a pro scouting day, and all the same things happen again right back on their campus in March. And so you see the ratings change at that time. So the key to getting drafted is to have a few teams absolutely in love with the player, and they can pick that player wherever they want. But generally there's a draft board, and they've rated every one of the college players in order in terms of what they want.
Let's talk about your personal issues that you've dealt with throughout the years. You've been arrested at least once, maybe a couple of times for drunk driving, and you had a well-known, I've seen you on TV talking about it, a well-publicized battle with alcohol addiction. How bad did it get, and were the reports accurate that you just weren't giving as good of care to your clients as you should have been?
No, we weren't losing clients. I wasn't drinking in the office. In the 2000s, a series of events happened in my private life. We lost a couple houses to toxic mold. My father went through a long battle with cancer. My two boys were found to have an incurable eye disease. Then I ultimately got divorced, and that was the real catalyst back in around 2007. No, this wasn't an issue of players leaving me. I sort of withdrew, and I didn't by the end, I missed a few days a week in the office. I had my greatest motivation by 2010 was drinking the next bottle of vodka. And so I became addicted to alcohol and finally crashed in March of 2010. This March will be 4 years for me. And just made a decision that I would put sobriety first. I'd be a good father. And if nothing else, I'd focus on that.
How painful was it? For instance, I think former clients of yours. I think Drew Bledsoe was one of them.
One former client.
He testified in a court case. One of your partners left and started his own agency, and of course that turned into a legal battle. But how painful was it to have a guy, former client, up there saying, "Hey, Leigh was drunk and was giving me subservice standard." Because I've had an agent. I've had the same agent for, I don't know, almost 15 years. And it becomes oftentimes more than just a business relationship. You become friends with that person. My agent and I happen to be very close. How painful was that for you to have to sit there and listen to that?
Painful. And it wasn't a lot of players. It was one player. I had long-lasting relationships. Warren Moon and I went 23 years together. Steve Young, 14 years. Troy Aikman, 12 years. So I had long-term, good, loyal clients. We had 21 quarterbacks at one point, and 78 of the 90 players had gone to the Pro Bowl. 7 of the players went into the Hall of Fame. And again, I imploded mostly in my personal life. It wasn't like I was sitting in the office drinking, but it was bad enough. And I just realized when I came to a certain point that I'd been in denial. Alcohol had snuck up on me, and I cannot safely drink alcohol for the rest of my life. So I committed my life to that, and then we just relaunched. So I'm back. We're back out talking to college players and setting up those charitable and community foundations, and also involved in marketing and then sports theme motion pictures, television, video games. Concussion's been a big issue that I've been fighting on for years. I've had 6 concussion conferences to make the players aware. We've got an environmental initiative, so it's a blessing to have another chance.
Let me ask you before I let you go. Leigh Steinberg is on with us. His book is The Agent, My 40-Year Career Making Deals and Changing the Game. Some of these guys that are juniors and are thinking about entering the NFL draft, Manziel and other people like that, do you recommend that? I mean, would you recommend, go into the draft? Would you say hold off? I mean, again, I'm a layman. I would say, hey, man, who knows? You could have some horrible injury your senior year. Get in now, cash in while you can. Or is it thinking, well, maybe you could have a higher pick later if you stay your senior year? I mean, what advice would you give? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I do get in that situation. The first part of it's personal. If a player has unfulfilled goals in college, wants to come back and win a Heisman, hone his skills, just wants to finish college, I tell them to go back. If they're contemplating coming out, then you make an analysis and project where they would go in the 2014 draft, for example, as opposed to 2015. Whether another year helps them. And for certain players, let's take a running back, they've probably shown what they can show by the end of their junior year, and they have a high risk of injury if they go back. These franchise quarterbacks, the Johnny Manziels, the Bridgewaters, the players like that, they've got a critical choice to make, because those players probably end up being picked at the top of this draft or next draft. And you see it work both ways. So Mark Sanchez comes out of school early against his coach's advice, and he has a troubled career. Other players come out early and they're superb. So it's really personal.
Well, Leigh's book is called The Agent, My 40-Year Career Making Deals and Changing the Game. It is going to be in stores on Tuesday, January 21st. Is that correct? Is that the date that it's released?
That's right. It's launching then. It's available now for pre-order on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and hopefully it'll give some people some inspiration and an inside look at how the world of baseball, football, basketball, boxing work, and I hope people enjoy it.
When you do a book deal, do you act as your own agent, or do you have an agent?
Both times I've done it, I wrote another book called Winning with Integrity. I've had someone else represent me, because if you represent yourself, you're apt to have the same problems everyone else does, which is not to be real objective. So they say if you're a lawyer and you represent yourself, you have a fool for a client. So I've always used representation.
All right, Leigh Steinberg, good luck with the book, and I appreciate you coming on, my man.
Thank you, Rover.
Thank you. He was the inspiration for that Jerry Maguire movie.
Yeah.
He was the guy, like Tom Cruise's character.